I truly believe that we're on the cusp of more Steven Universe. Not only does Rebecca Sugar want to continue the series, on top of Cartoon Network bringing back all their heavy hitters from the 2010s, but Rebecca Sugar is already working for Cartoon Network again, making an Adventure Time movie with a team of animation legends. Not to mention, Steven Universe is still pretty popular. It feels like something related to the show is always trending on TikTok. The stars are aligning, and I don't think anyone would be surprised if they announced a brand new Steven Universe project within the next couple years. Which sounds crazy, but I'm pretty sure they're going all in with Adventure Time and regular show, because Fiona and Cake was a huge hit, and that only premiered a year ago. Cartoon Network's trying to get back on track, and these projects seem to be going through a quick development process, being announced to the world not too long after production starts, which is bold. Now, when the idea of more Steven Universe gets floated around the interwebs, I often see two questions. The first being, hasn't Steven had enough? There's been 5 seasons, a movie, and an epilogue season. Honestly, I think this question is silly, because it feels like it ignores the fact that Adventure Time had 10 seasons, regular show had 8, and Gumball had 6. And whereas Steven Universe seasons got shorter as they went on, except for season 5 because they were canceled and then got a few more, Adventure Time and regular show in particular fluctuate, and both of their base shows are longer than all of Steven Universe combined. So if they can get more, then no, I don't think Steven has had enough. Not to mention, the original series got canceled and had to wrap things up early. You can tell while watching season 5 that there is at least another season in store. And I know a lot of people are mixed on Future, and while I enjoyed it, I truly believe that it was a victim of a smaller budget. More on that later. As someone who was obsessed with this series for years, believe me when I say that Steven Universe absolutely deserves a comeback. One that can allow the series to live up to its full potential. But that brings me to question number 2. What the hell would a new Steven Universe even look like? What's there left to explore? I don't know. How about the paragraph of Diamond lore blacked out from the art book? There's a ton of things that a new Steven Universe series or movie could tackle, and I'm gonna prove it with this video. The origins of the Diamonds, Rhodonite confronting the Morganite that disposed of her, and Steven versus Bloodstone? Trust me, it'll all make sense once you see the limitless potential of Steven Universe. Real quick, this video is brought to you by our Patreon, where for just $1 you can get sneak peeks, your name featured at the end of videos, and a glimpse into projects we want to produce with your help. Supporting our Patreon also helps me afford cool art for videos, like this dope illustration by the homie JANKYBONES. So consider checking it out. And if you're in the market for some dope Steven Universe inspired merch, check out some of our designs over at Toondrip. We got some great stuff that you won't find in stores. Thanks for tuning in, y'all. Now on to the main event. First things first, any continuation of Steven Universe should follow the footsteps of Fiona and Cake by growing up with its audience, making the leap from a kid's show to an adult animated series, complete with a crisp TV-14 or TVMA rating. Which I should probably mention because I know not everyone lives in America, but most adult animated series are either rated TV-14 or TVMA. TV-14 is just a show equivalent of a PG-13 movie. I'm only going out of my way to clarify this because when Fiona and Cake came out, there was a decent amount of people who insisted it wasn't an adult animated series because 14-year-olds are teens, not adults. And that's true, I'm just explaining how the TV parental guidelines work. For whatever reason, they said, hey parents, if you got a kid under 14, they can't handle stuff like blood, swearing, and alcohol. I don't know why they chose 14. Maybe because that's the age a lot of people are starting high school, so they're seeking out media aimed at older crowds. But yeah, for as long as I can remember, entertainment companies have always treated animation as something either for kids or adults. And thus every TV-14 cartoon, and really shows in general, have been considered adult media. Now, the Fiona and Cake crew themselves refer to the show as a young adult animated series, which is a label that's a bit more common with books. And over there, it's pretty much the teen demographic. I think Barnes & Noble even listed as teens and young adults on their website. So if you just want to call them teen shows, there's that. This honestly could be a video in its own because it's giving me the urge to talk about a bunch of shows that aren't Steven Universe, but you get the point. TV-14 lets you push the envelope a lot more than a Y7 or PG rating, and after Adventure Time proved that you can turn a TV PG kid show into a TV 14 young adult show and make it work, I'm itching to see what Steven Universe could do with that level of freedom. Now you may be thinking, you just want to hear Pearl say fuck, don't you?
Yes. Excuse me, ASS spells ass.
But there's a lot more to this sentiment than simply wanting an edgy Steven Universe. I do want that, but let me cook. A big part of Steven Universe's appeal is its subject matter. People obviously love the characters and the music and the lore, but there was so much praise for how it depicted a variety of complex relationships and its exploration of things such as loss, trauma, identity, and morality. And while it got heavy in a lot of those areas, they still had to pull punches because it's ultimately marketed towards kids, and in the context of the show itself, Steven was a kid. He was already being exposed to more than he could handle at a young age. But if you give us a Steven that's a little bit older, in a project that's geared towards a more adult audience, no more punches have to be pulled, and they can go all in. Not that I want Steven to be put through the ringer again, but I do want to see how he'd respond in situations that are even more complex than the Diamond Authority, which was ultimately a situation where he had a pretty good trump card. Much like Adventure Time in regular show, it was clear that Steven was restricted by the TV PG rating, though that didn't really stop it from getting freaky. And like both those shows, said restrictions have their own pros and cons. It forces the crewniverse to get creative, but there's also lines they can't cross. Hell, it's common knowledge at this point, but the fact the original series got canned because of the Ruby and Sapphire wedding is insane, and a direct result of it being a kids show. That clearly wouldn't have been an issue if the show was bumped up to TV-14. I also feel like Steven Universe got hit harder than most by Cartoon Network's late 2010s mission to cater to a younger demographic. You know, when a lot of their programming leaned into a cutesy aesthetic instead of prioritizing the rule of cool. The show lost a lot of its edge and horror elements as it progressed. You still had traces of it here and there, but for the most part, seasons 4 and 5 feel a lot more sanitized than seasons 1 and 2. It's a shame because if you look at Rebecca Sugar's other works before Steven Universe, you can see that they have an affinity for darker stories that have a gritty look to them, grotesque expressions, body horror, and so on. Things that used to be a lot more prevalent in Steven Universe before the tone shifted. Like, yeah, White Diamond pulling out Steven's gem was creepy, but if Season 5 had the same dog in it that Season 1 had, it would have been straight up horrific. The only thing that really matched the intensity of the first 2 seasons were the topazes trapping everyone through fusion, and even that felt a little tame in execution. An adult revival could bring the series back to its roots. I want to be just as on edge watching the show as I was in high school seeing Steven morph into a blob of cats. Not even his corruption was as disturbing as this. Push the envelope. Get as dark as the crewniverse wants. If the response to Finn going ballistic on a giant swamp monster is any indication, then people will love it. And yeah, I want it to be edgy. Who doesn't want Amethyst to swear and relish in a little immaturity? If Finn got to make a "these nuts" joke, then she should too.
No way! You always driving into people's cars, bitch? And I don't need your fat ass getting in the way.
A lot of stories were left on the cutting room floor during the creation of Steven Universe Future. Now, if you're someone who wasn't a big fan of Future, don't get mad when I say this, but according to the art book, Future was originally going to be focused on exploring gem origins.
How the fuck would you show me something if I couldn't have it?
Now, before you use this against the little epilogue series that could, I actually think the pivot to a personal mental health-oriented story was a good call. As I said in the intro, Future seemed to be made on a smaller budget, and I imagine that limited the scope of what they could do. Like, it's only 20 episodes instead of the usual 26, there's no half-hour specials. They had to recast Bismuth in the last few episodes. A lot of episodes are limited to just 2 or 3 voice actors. The episodes animated by someone still look great, but not as good as their work on the first 5 seasons. It's painfully obvious that the money they had to work with wasn't on the same level as the original series, which probably influenced their decision to keep it a personal story with relatively low stakes. I feel like Volleyball kinda touches on gem origins as we're shown where pearls were made. Maybe that was an idea Sugar had back when Future was going to explore gem origins, retooled to focus on Steven's downward spiral. And just because they didn't commit to exploring gem origins in Future doesn't mean they have no interest in doing so at all. I don't think Sugar would have redacted the diamond origins from the art book if this was something she never intended on diving into. It's probably a big thing she wants to tackle in a new installment. Like I said in my White Diamond video, I would love if the creator of Gemkind came back into the picture and responded to the change Homeworld has gone under thanks to Steven. Does the creator approve or disapprove? How would white, yellow, and blue react to their return? Or what if the creators are dead because of the diamonds, who, for some reason, don't know about it? Uncovering gem origins could actually justify a shift into an adult demographic, and vice versa. While it's definitely something that could have been pulled off in the original series, I find that people tend to care about their roots later on in life, rather than when they're a kid or teenager. If Steven's older, he may naturally grow curious about where gems come from, where he comes from, and he seeks out an answer. Though I would rather prefer an adventure that's set up with a dramatic inciting incident. Depending on how dark the diamond origins are though, breaking free from the chains of a TVPG rating may actually benefit how said origins are depicted. Another scrap story that they can implement is the origin of rhodonite. Originally there was going to be an episode where Peridot made a device that could tell gems how many times they've been rejuvenated. As it would turn out, rhodonite was rejuvenated 17 times while serving morganite, a gem who created palanquins for the diamonds. Every time their pearl and ruby fell in love and fused, morganite would hit them with the factory reset. But they just kept falling in love over and over. It's really sweet actually. While they would probably need to revise this idea now that it's public knowledge, I'd still love to see this animated. I'd love to see rhodonite find and confront her morganite. Would morganite double down and refuse to apologize? Or would she be extremely remorseful? Imagine if morganite herself started fusing, and the reason why rhodonite is struggling to find her is because she's spending all of her time living as someone else. That would be a huge plot twist. Hell, this could work even if the series isn't even about Steven, but instead ends up being something like a Lars of the Stars spin-off. That's something I would gladly welcome with open arms instead of a continuation of Steven's story because 1. Lars's captain design is dope, 2. I'm still mad we didn't get to see Lars use his powers, and 3. That means we get to explore more of space, and I'm always gonna be down for that. I do want to learn more about gem culture though. We know where pearls and quartz soldiers come from, but what other gems are made a little differently? What were the exact purposes of colonies? How far out into the galaxy did the gems expand? These are questions I'm dying to know the answers to. But gem origins don't guarantee conflict, and Steven Universe is always at its best when there's a problem that needs to be solved. But instead of giving us another gem as a central threat, what if the big bad was instead a human? I remember a bunch of fans were begging for the government to pop out and play a role in the story during the show's run. And after thinking about it, I think it actually makes more sense for the government to get involved now after the diamond conflict has been resolved. It seems like most people on Earth just aren't aware of gem stuff. Connie pretty much had no idea that aliens existed before meeting Steven. Same thing with Uncle Andy. And hell, it took the townies like 2 seasons to fully comprehend what the gem's deal is. While I think the government is aware of unnatural phenomena, like the strawberry fields, sea spire, and abandoned dropships, the gems themselves flew under the radar because they kept a low profile next to a small town that only attracted tourists during the summer. But now tons of gems live freely on Earth, and I think it's inevitable that they'll want to branch out and live in other parts of the world. I also think it's inevitable that a gem and a human end up hitting it off, and more hybrids are born into the world. With this uptick in gem activity, it makes sense that the government would finally make their presence known and try to capitalize on gemkind. I know government bad stories aren't anything new, but I think them playing an antagonistic role just makes sense. Viewing gems less as people and more as weapons, wanting to take advantage of gems by implementing their technology and the gems themselves into the military, something Steven and the crystal gems would obviously be opposed to. Hell, it doesn't even have to be the government as we know it. We know so little about this version of Earth that I could easily see the government being akin to something like Shinra from Final Fantasy VII, which is a mega corporation that has a stake in the world's societal and political affairs, harvesting powerful resources for their own nefarious gain. I think what would make or break this kind of story is the villain. Don't give us some generic agent dudes who are defined by their voice actors or quirky one-liners like Trigger and Power from Gravity Falls. Give us a villain who's unlike anyone or anything we've seen from Steven Universe. Since I just mentioned Final Fantasy VII and Shinra, a twisted scientist character like Hojo could be a great fit, rolling out dangerous experiments that the crystal gems have to go up against. But I'd also love to see a character who's moving like Barham Bridge from Chainsaw Man. I actually think that would be a perfect antagonist for Steven. Someone who's always jovial and friendly to a creepy degree, even when they're carrying out horrific misdeeds. Someone who knows how to manipulate the masses and get people to subscribe to their twisted ideology, using other people to avoid getting their hands dirty, but they still know how to cut loose and have a good time wreaking havoc. Think about it. Steven's friendly. He loves helping people. He's a well-spoken, well-mannered individual whose heart is in the right place. He's great at persuading others to make a positive, meaningful change in their lives. So imagine him being pit against someone who's also well-spoken, well-mannered, and quite persuasive, but their heart is clearly in the wrong place. Someone who tries to bait Steven and the crystal gems into terrible situations where the blame can be easily pinned on them, causing their reputation to go down the drain. What could start as a simple Steven and the gems try to prove this guy is bad news story could evolve into something more compelling. Steven trying to understand how a human being could have such a warped perception of reality and relish in the pain of others. On top of exploring the theme of prejudice, as Steven desperately tries to prove that gems are people, not tools. It would quickly stop being a matter of trying to get through to this guy, and instead become a matter of trying to stop his influence without eating right out of the palm of his hands. I really want you guys to see the vision, so try to imagine the following as an episode or even a mini arc. Sketchy agent dude is looking for some human and gem volunteers for a super secret project. A gem or two from Little Homeworld offer their assistance, but out of all the humans, Ronaldo is the one who jumps at the chance to be involved. After all these years, Ronaldo is still obsessed with aliens and the supernatural, longing to be involved after seeing Steven, Connie, Lars, and even Sadie have their lives changed by the myriad of extraterrestrial adventures they've embarked on. He wants his chance to experience the things they have, but he's gonna learn to be careful with what he wishes for. Probably. So what's this top secret project? Oh, you know. Just a little experiment where a human and gem are forcefully fused together in an attempt to give the human gem powers like Steven. Yeah, this turns out as horrific as you would expect. Both Ronaldo and the gem are reduced to puppets, with the gemstone implanted right on Ronaldo's face. Kinda like how Lapis was put in the mirror. His limbs are replaced with the gem's weapon. He's all veiny and gross. It's not a pretty sight. I think this would be a great way to reinforce the darker tone of the earlier seasons. It's already pretty twisted as a concept, but you could also incorporate some good body horror with Ronaldo's false hybrid form. Which, you know what? Might as well bring it full circle and call this bad boy Bloodstone. Neither Ronaldo nor the gem have control of the body, so you have an unconscious Ronaldo rampaging through Beach City like a corrupted gem, destroying anything in his path as he attacks his family and friends. Steven, Lars, and Connie band together to stop Ronaldo without hurting him, which is easier said than done. And although they do manage to save Ronaldo and the gem, Ronaldo doesn't walk away from this experience unscathed. Maybe he just gets his own scars, like Lars and Sadie, or maybe he sustains a pretty serious injury, like losing an arm or a leg in the process. You know, something of consequence that they couldn't get away with in the original series. But knowing Ronaldo, he wouldn't care about the missing limb nearly as much as missing out on the memory of having gem powers. Overlooking the horrifying reality of the situation, he comically demands a redo, which just leaves everyone pretty annoyed. Meanwhile, our sketchy agent dude is able to take control of the narrative because Ronaldo's rampage has people terrified of what gems are capable of, covering up his involvement in the whole ordeal. As far as the public's concerned, a gem just possessed a random guy. In general, I think human antagonists would be a pretty welcome addition to the series, and it's something that can both build off what's come before it, while also pushing the series in a more mature direction. Steven got a taste of how the world may react to gems with Uncle Andy, someone who was not rocking with the gems at all when he first met Steven. Andy had an innate prejudice against them, and it really feels like the only reason he was able to work past that was because of his relation to Steven. Steven's half gem, accepting him meant accepting gemkind as a whole. But aside from the fact that things don't always work out like that in real life, Steven's just not going to be able to win everyone over, especially when he doesn't have a familial connection to fall back on. I know people aren't super thrilled when a show like Steven Universe has on-the-nose political commentary. Gem Harvest isn't exactly a favorite, but I do think a conflict like this could challenge Steven's character in a meaningful way. Yeah, maybe you'll roll your eyes when someone inevitably shouts, "Go back to Homeworld" at a gem, but you'll also be on the edge of your seat, when some humans steal destabilizers and try to jump a gem, only for Jasper to hop in and turn that bitch into a scene out of Invincible. I mean, damn! Tell me Jasper beefing with human protesters wouldn't be entertaining in its own right. Also, nearly every conflict in this series is about the hardships marginalized people face, so I really don't think this would be a deal breaker. I truly think you could get something great out of Steven trying to fight for Gemkind's right to live freely on Earth, but instead of going up against an alien empire, he's simply dealing with other humans, and they're a lot harder to crack. And characters like Jasper and Bluebird aren't helping out at all. Jasper's obviously not going to tolerate any disrespect, so she would definitely choose to fight instead of ignoring it or talking things out. And Bluebird would just want Steven to fail, and would have no qualms incriminating gems to make it happen. I'm telling y'all, this is an arc that's brimming with potential. As long as the story makes good use of its sci-fi fantasy elements to keep it interesting, human antagonist and government interference could truly lead to one of the best arcs we've seen from Steven Universe. You want to know something that really annoyed me with Steven Universe? While the show did introduce a pretty good amount of gems, it still felt like we were cheated out of meeting so many more. Especially on Homeworld, where they copped out of designing new gems by only showing the back of their bodies. Who are you people? I get not wanting to design a plethora of characters who aren't even gonna have speaking roles, and so much work already went into these episodes and the movie, but speaking purely as a fan, it just felt very underwhelming after being kept in the dark about Homeworld for so long. Same thing with most of the little Homeworld gems being quartzes or variants of gems we've seen before. But I could yap about Future for an entire video. The point is, I'd love to see new gems and really new aliens in general. Give us some more animalistic creatures like those Stefani encountered in Jungle Moon, and give us a new race of humanoid aliens on par with the gems. Ian did say that humans were the only other intelligent life that gems encountered, but that's just one galaxy. Who's to say super smart aliens aren't chilling a few Milky Ways over? Or just bring them in from another dimension. It's a cartoon, you can make it work. I remember there used to be a fan idea where instead of gems, there would be metals that function pretty much the same but would skew more masculine in appearance. I know there's Bismuth, who's a gem but is named after a metal, but who cares? Different dimension or whatever. There was this one AU art with Coda came up with years ago where instead of gems, they were flower people, and honestly, I'd love to see that as a whole race. They don't have to be a carbon copy of gems either. There would be different types of flowers that had different abilities and tasks, sure, but some could look like Gardevoir, some could look like Piranha Plant, and some could look like fairies or poison ivy. I don't know, I'm just spitballing at this point. But I definitely think people would eat something like this up. The fan art, the cosplays, the sonas, it'd pop off. And those are all things the Crewniverse were aware of and leaned into, and I miss having cartoons that engage with their audience on that level. But also, new aliens means new worlds, and just going off what we did see of Homeworld, alongside the substantial amount of world building they pulled off in 5 seasons, it's clear the Crewniverse knows how to invent unique locations with an amazing atmosphere. How could you not want more of that? You know, provided we get to be in those places for more than 5 seconds. Last but certainly not least, I want to see more Steven Universe because I want to see more Steven. I know a lot of people felt like Future was a good end for his arc, but I simply don't agree. The original series, sure, Change Your Mind is a great ending, but Future didn't feel conclusive. It felt like a temporary goodbye, which was by design. After Future, I want to see what's next for Steven more than ever. I want to know what he wants to do with his life, what that entails, his relationship with Connie, his diamond powers, the list goes on. Maybe you're tired of Steven as a character, and again, I'd take a spin-off. But regardless of if we're following Steven, Connie, Lars, or any of the Crystal Gems, I'd still want Steven to be involved and to get an update on him. Finn was only in 1 episode of Fiona and Cake, but his brief screen time conveyed so much about where he was at mentally. Something like that is all I need. Steven's story just doesn't feel complete to me yet, so as long as Cartoon Network is bringing back his peers for more adventures, I'm gonna advocate for a continuation. Steven Universe has limitless potential, and I hope this video has helped you see it. Drop your thoughts on our revival in the comments down below, and give me a follow over on Twitter and Instagram at AwestruckVox and at Roundtable Vids. Shout out to JANKYBONES for a kick-ass thumbnail. They really knocked it out of the park, like exactly how I envisioned it, if not even better. Give them a follow at JANKYBONE on Twitter, links to everything in the description. And if you enjoyed this video, please sure to like and subscribe to the Roundtable with notifications on so you never miss a video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have an awesome day. AwestruckVox, signing out.